Cliff, could you lead us in the pledge?
I can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sue, could you call the roll, please?
Jim Holton.
Present.
Melanie Griffin. Melanie is unable to join us. She sends her regrets. She has a business conflict. Cliff Manuel.
Present.
Michael Millett.
Present.
Commissioner Wayne Dukes. He is unable to join us. He has a business conflict. Commissioner Pat Kemp.
Here.
Commissioner Betsy Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey.
Here.
Commissioner Karen Seal. Mayor Rick Reisman.
Here.
Mayor Bob Buckhorn.
Here.
Kathleen Shanahan. Commissioner Janet Long.
Here.
Secretary David Glenn.
Here.
Secretary L.K. Mandam. He sends his regrets. He is out of town. Jimmy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Please give the PSA regarding public comment.
Persons wishing to address the board are requested to complete a comment card and give it to staff. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. The public comment period can be extended for up to 30 minutes.
Thank you, Sue. Before we get started, we have a very abbreviated agenda today for anyone wishing to speak, so please limit your comments to 3 minutes under the rules. Welcome, Commissioner Seal. The chair recognizes Tom Nacera.
Good morning, board members. Since our last board meeting, we had the great pleasure of briefing Commissioner Janet Long about our plans for a regional SkyTrans system. Mayor Kreisman has also been to our office and met with us and had an opportunity to review the concepts that we are moving forward. I also, since the last meeting, spoke with the SkyTrans officer in charge of North American development, who has indicated his approval in our plan to explore a public-private partnership with TBARTA. Such a partnership can expedite the development of a regional system. I look forward to beginning the discussion of such a public-private partnership at TBARTA's earliest convenience. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else wishing to make public comment, and have you turned in a card to Sue or any staff member? Okay. None being heard, I will close public comment. We do have a very quick agenda, and I've been advised that some members have to leave early, so I would like to move down the action items as quickly as possible. We will have a discussion following regarding a resignation and subsequent governance issues and so forth at the last part of the meeting. So with that said, the first action item is I recognize Michael Case.
Good morning, board members. Michael Case, TBARTA. With me is Bob Medina of Enterprise. As you know, TBARTA administers and markets the regional van pool program for the Florida Department of Transportation, District 7, as part of the broader commuter assistance program. The program is structured as a public-private partnership, and we've worked with Enterprise since early 2017 when they acquired our previous partner, V-Ride. Our current contract with them expires on June 30th of this year, and we released an RFP in April to continue the service. Enterprise is the recommended awardee. They have been really an exemplary partner. Since they came on board, they have increased the number of vans on the road from 89 up to now 123, just over the past year and a half. We have provided a copy of the legally reviewed and approved contract in your packets today. This contract was also provided to you in the June 8th meeting. There have been some minor changes to that, mostly pertaining to some state requirements. One, that we have to maintain public records, and that has to be specified expressly within the contract. Two, because this contract uses federal funding from FTA, We also had to incorporate some FTA-required clauses for contracts that exceed $100,000. So both of those are now in this contract. Unless you have any questions for me regarding the RFP process or the contract itself, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Medina of Enterprise to talk about their van pool program, the proposal, and some of the impacts to our region.
Any questions for Michael? None being heard, the chair recognizes Bob Medina.
There you go.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for the time. I would just wanted to give you a very brief overview of our program as a nationwide provider and also what our local program looks like today.
Introducing Enterprise Rideshare, a smarter way to get to work. Because when you come together, you make a difference in your life and your coworkers' lives. And you make a difference in the world around you. Best of all, it's easy. 4 to 15 coworkers who live near one another meet at a central location, board a newer van or SUV with Wi-Fi, satellite radio, and leather seats if you want, and use the HOV lane to get to work, which saves a minute per mile, by the way. At the end of the day, everyone rides together back to the meeting point. A few people share the driving responsibilities, rotating daily or weekly, so nobody has to drive every day, and everyone has a chance to use that time to get extra work done, read, or relax. When you already live together in the same community and work together at the same company, you can come together for a better commute with Enterprise Rideshare. When you come together for a better
Just as a program overview nationwide, today Enterprise manages over 12,000 vehicles in North America with almost 109,000 riders. On an annual basis, miles reduced with an average mile of 2,100 miles per van ride is about 2.4 billion miles, and a savings cost of $1.1 billion saved to all those riders, as well as eliminating 1.9 billion pounds into the environment. Today, Enterprise is actually the 4th largest transit operator, just behind LA, New York, Chicago, when it comes to passenger miles traveled, and the #1 largest when it comes to managed fleet. Our proposal overview really talks about our fleet options and availability, what we currently have. We acquired, as Michael mentioned earlier, V-Ride in early 2017, and what we bring to the table is over 1.9 million vehicles that are managed through Enterprise. We currently today have 2 on-site full-time employees in TBARTA to help manage and grow this program, as well as an outside sales executive and me, all local employees, to manage the program and to drive the performance of it. And then we also want to leverage over 3,500 local agreements that we have today with large corporations within the Tampa region that we can introduce to this new program that are unaware of it today. And then the last piece is just what we also bring to the table is a national marketing campaign for rideshare that we're actually launching in North America. Sorry about that. Where is it? Come on, baby.
No one knows what the future of transportation will look like. Robots. But no matter what, Enterprise can help. You can rent a car for a road trip. Look, kids, nature. Oh, wow. You can rent a truck for a move. You can buy a car, commute in a van pool, or get picked up because your car is in a pool. My bad. Count on Enterprise, no matter where transportation goes next.
Let's go.
I love the future. How can Enterprise pick you up today?
So we're pretty excited about that, adding it into our overall ground transportation solution. With that, we thank you again for the opportunity and look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Any questions for Bob? Kathleen?
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of this carpool, van pool. How big do you think this, I mean, you must have projections with what's the capacity in the Tampa Bay area. Where are we against that capacity, and what's our timeline to get there?
Well, I think when we took over the program, as Michael mentioned earlier, it was about 89, 90 units. We forecasted in the first year about 35% growth. We've added another full-time employee to help manage and, more importantly, manage this level of service that we provide. Our forecast would be at least 40 to 50% growth on an annual basis.
Right, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Bob, on behalf of the, oh, was there a question?
Yes.
Kathleen, sorry.
No,
Catherine, I didn't see you.
I'm
I didn't see you, yeah.
Who owns the van? I'm not, I mean, is it an enterprise company van and then people take it home on a rotating basis?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what I understood?
So what we do is we actually own, operate, and maintain the vehicles, and the riders simply rent them on a monthly basis.
Oh.
So it's a 30-day period, so it's not a long-term commitment, but based on the level of service we can provide, the different types of vehicle options that we can offer, people really tend to, after about 30 to 60 days, it becomes a part of life. It actually is a bit of a lifestyle change, giving up a little bit of freedom, but once they realize how productive they can be during their commute and how reliable it is, people really, the average length of rental today is almost 3 years.
So the group goes into a compact and rents the van together?
Yeah, so what we do is we target the employers, so that's where people really are commuting to. And then what we do is we have online technology where we can do ride matching. And based on their zip codes, we'll match people up that live in a particular area and commute to the same employer and put them in a room. We discuss what the ride would look like, show them vehicle options, and then they basically sign up and rent the vehicle on a monthly basis, which is obviously subsidized by TBARTA as well.
Very cool. And so they take it home, they share it, and then someone has it over the weekend. Are they allowed to use it on the weekend, or is it supposed to stay parked?
They are. So what we do is we include a certain amount of free miles per month that the coordinator, which is the driver, can use for personal use, just as a perk.
There's one driver.
Well, there's one coordinator who's responsible for the vehicle, but there are multiple drivers in case that person's on vacation, becomes ill, so that there's a backup driver and people obviously don't have to use their personal vehicles to go, as well as it includes an emergency vehicle ride home.
Okay, I didn't realize that's how it worked. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, and Bob, on behalf of the board, thank you for timely getting these contracts back for review. I know we've been under somewhat of a exigent circumstance here. We appreciate your legal team and staff in doing that, and I've been a loyal customer for years, so thanks for your continued goodwill in this community and all you do.
Thank you again. We appreciate this opportunity.
Well, incidentally, was the dog in an autonomous vehicle, or was he actually the driver?
I can't say.
Good.
I
It
have
is out
asked,
there.
I have asked Bob if we can get Kristen Bell for a local campaign as well, so we're working on that.
Exactly. That being said, Michael, can you briefly state staff's recommendation here for?
Yes, we are recommending approval of the contract as provided in your packets today. So that would start effective on July 1st and would be up for renewal again on June 30th, 2020. There are built into the contract 3 one-year extensions. So 2023, effectively, if we took all of those extensions, would be when we had to go back out for RFP again.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve. I just want to make it clear, we're not approving a draft agreement. This is the final agreement.
Correct.
Striking it. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion, second, any discussion? None being heard, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Next order of business is the approval of the interlocal agreement between TBARTA and PSTA, and Ray is going to present that.
Just one comment I wanted to make. I was actually a van pool driver for 4 years when I lived in Celebration and worked in downtown Tampa. We saved 896,000 miles by having that van, so it's a great program. And if you ever have questions, I've seen everything in the 4 years of how it works. So with that, we have the draft interlocal agreement between TBARTA and PSTA. Just to remind you, you've seen this before. The important thing about this is that this has us working in partnership with PSTA to try to become a direct recipient sooner by using their financial services and help to move us forward quicker. We're ready to go to a new level, and this can get us there faster. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Just the two important notes is it's a 6-month agreement that can be renewed or can be terminated by either party at any time. So those are the main parameters of it, and it will provide us with some assistance in the financial area.
Questions for Ray regarding the agreement?
Move approval.
Second.
Been a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry. The motion carries. Thank you, Ray.
Okay, great. Mike?
Next, Michael will brief us on the FTA direct recipient authorizing resolution.
Yes, very brief document in your packets. This resolution, in a nutshell, what it does is it authorizes the executive director to file any and all paperwork on behalf of TBARTA to become a direct recipient of the FTA. It also authorizes the executive director and his or her designees to file project applications for federal assistance. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Questions for Michael?
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry. Motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
We are moving along. The chair will again recognize Ray.
Okay.
Item 4.
This is important resolution. This would authorize us having a joint participation agreement with FDOT on receiving that $1 million in funding for the Regional Transit Development Plan development. You'll remember that we received that appropriation from the legislature to identify how we can add on to whatever our catalyst project is in the future and work on a plan to do that. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Move approval.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry. Motion carries. Thank you, Ray.
Okay.
The next motion came out of our discussion in the last meeting where there was no quorum. The search firm has suggested that I appoint an ad hoc committee to preliminary screen and work with the search firm in selecting applicants to present to the full board. And it's the intent of this board to be as open and as transparent and as participatory as possible in doing this. But I would ask for your authority, and I'll make a motion from the chair to allow me to appoint a ad hoc search committee, which we are not authorized to do under our specific bylaws, but which special counsel and Cameron concurred with to work with the search committee in preliminarily screening the interviewees for the new executive director position.
Did you say you made a motion?
Or
you need a motion?
I will make the motion from the chair.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair, as a point of procedure, you may wish to pass the gavel to the vice chair if you're going to make the motion.
I will do so.
We have a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Good job.
I'm done. Can I leave now?
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to take the stage.
I got that plenty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be a story about that.
The next item of business is amendments to the bylaws, and Cameron will present on that.
Sorry, just because I can never quite figure that mic out, I'm going to do it from up here. These bylaws changes are as what was discussed previously. Originally, it came up when Mr. Millett was pointing out an inconsistency between separate committee bylaws. Both the TMC and the CAC had their own bylaws. Really, that's not necessary. I think this board should be setting the rules for its own committees. I recommend a motion be to strike any of the committee bylaws and also to accept the amendments before you. I actually, just because he's been counseling you on some items, Mr. Zimmett looked at these as well. We both added some language that is purely statutory requirements. It's not really discretionary changes. The real discretionary change relates to the composition of your CAC. The version before you, as what was discussed at our last meeting, it creates a 19-member CAC. Each member of this board appoints a committee member, and each of the 6 MPOs that are members of the MPO, TBARTA, CCC, appoint a member for a total of 19 voting members. And that's the item before you.
Move approval.
Second.
Been a motion, a second, and yes, Chair recognizes Commissioner Benak.
Thank you. I did have a couple of questions. I just want to, you give me many times to review it, and I finally did it before today's meeting. Did say where the Secretary Treasurer shall attest all contracts, resolutions, and other official TBARTA documents. That's never been a requirement until now, and I'm wondering where that's coming from. That's on page 4.
Yes, under the Secretary Treasurer shall. Yes, that language is pulled from the statute. That was Mr. Zimmett added that upon his review. I double checked. It looks consistent with the statute.
Okay, and then the second question, well, just because I don't know what that means exactly. Being the Secretary, do I have to be present here to attest to something, and at what point? Because that's a technical issue for me. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can answer technically how it would operate. I can only say that this reflects what's in the statute. I know that staff has expedited the responsibilities of the officers as expediently as possible for these sorts of responsibilities. This language is, like I said, only in here to reflect what it states in the statute.
The second one that I had, you have on page 6, it says the Uniform Special District Accountability Act, and then there was a comment. I don't think Chapter 120 applies to TBARTA. Am I missing something?
Right.
I was kind of confused by that, too. We're not a special district.
We are an independent special district. We're on the list of special districts. There is, actually, Mr. Zim and I had a discussion on this. Was interesting. In Chapter 120, which is the Administrative Procedure Act, it excludes multi-county special districts whose boards are made up of majority of elected officials. However, in a couple of different points, 2 points, within TBARTA's own statute, it makes brief, limited references to Chapter 120. That creates a little confusion because it 120 expressly excludes from its definition of the agency transportation authorities that are under Chapter 343, which TBARTA is one, but then TBARTA's own statute actually makes a couple small references. All I could determine from looking at it was in 2007, when the TBARTA statute was originally created, the agency language that excludes transportation agencies under 343 didn't exist yet. It was added in 2010. My thought was when that was added in 2010, nobody went back to 120, or I'm sorry, yeah, to 120 or to 343 to take that language out. It maybe should have been, but I think in general what Alan and I agreed on is that this board is not generally subject to the APA. It may be subject in the 2 limited circumstances that it states in Chapter 343, but that's all. That was maybe more than you wanted, but.
Okay. All right, it's just a couple things I caught. Okay.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you turn my mic on, please?
Yeah,
Thank
see
you.
your name here, so I'll turn your mic on.
I just wanted to respond for a moment to Commissioner Benak's concern because I recognize that on a big regional board like this, having to be present to sign all these things can be problematic at best. However, it's been my experience serving on different kinds of boards that usually those documents are presented to you at a monthly board meeting, and if there's an emergency, then the staff is usually pretty good at traveling to wherever you are so that they can get the documents signed.
Okay.
Just thought I'd throw that in there for consideration.
From your lips to staff's ears.
That's the way it works.
Other questions? Commissioner Starkey, did you have? Okay, no other questions then for council on that. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I have a motion.
I think you have a motion.
Motion, is there a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And that concludes our action items in record time. I want to thank the the board for its very prompt and swift movement on these things. Our final discussion item is Ray's resignation. As you all have probably heard or read or been told by Ray, he has decided to pursue public office. And I don't know whether envy or congratulations or both are in order for that, but I err towards congratulations. We look forward to hearing about that. And we're saddened, though, to see you leave your tenure here prior to the expiration of your term, but understand you need to do that in order to hit the campaign running. So with that said, I would like to recognize you to say a few words about your resignation, your plans, and to thank you from this board for your service to this board and this community for many, many years.
Well, I'd like to thank the board for hiring me 3.5 years ago for this job. I will tell you, it was the most difficult job I ever had, so I think if I could survive this job, then I got to move on to something even worse, which I found out that is. My respect for elected officials is up like 100%. Just filling out the papers at the Supervisor of Elections office has been a challenge. I just wanted to briefly go over, when I came here, I remember telling this board that I was kind of a nuts and bolts guy that wanted to get in there. I really felt strongly that TBARTA needed to exist, and I felt like it kind of had lost its way, and we needed to kind of start building from scratch. And that's what we did. I just want to highlight some of the things that we all together have accomplished. I mean, one of them is getting that $1 million from the legislature. When I first came here, they basically told me, I don't think your agency is going to exist 6 months. And I had to really go around and convince them that there were solid things we were doing. They did not know we had the van pool program in the legislature. They didn't know we did commuter services for FDOT. So I spent that first period kind of getting people to understand the potential here. And again, we've built new partnerships with new employers. We're moving in that direction. Our van pool program's gone up. I was a big believer in that and wanted to make sure they understood what we were doing. We've beefed up our regional school program from 66 now to 123 schools in the region participating. We've worked with the transit agencies on the regional fare cart. In fact, as we close out this grant we're trying to do, that'll be $565,000 split between HART and PSTA to cover some of the costs of this from a TBARTA grant that we have. FTA direct recipient, now the agency's going to be working on warp speed with PSTA to make that happen, which is great. And MPOs. All the MPOs were not big fans of TBARTA when I came in there. The advantage I had, I was an MPO director, and they were less afraid of me, I think, than they were before. And I had to prove to them, though, that we wanted to work with the MPOs together. And we finally got them all to join in and eventually become the TBARTA MPOs Chairs Coordinating Committee. So we eliminated that regional agency, incorporated it into TBARTA, and now we're doing a best practices study to see what's the best way forward for more regional coordination. Is it having the 3 central MPOs merge, or is it doing something else? But we're going to have those on the table. We're right in the middle of that process. It's complicated, but it's an important study that has never been done before, and then it will be up to the elected officials of this community to make the decision on how they want to proceed. The regional trail, that was my test regional effort. We found out that a lot of money was available, and the key whisper in my ear was, don't go as individual people, go as a region. And we got the whole west coast of Florida to come up with an idea called the Gulf Coast Trail, which is the new coast to coast. And we got a large amount of money, $11 million for the projects doing that. And now it's kind of built into the DNA of our trail planning to move forward with that. So a lot of things have happened, but I think it's time to go to the next level. I'm glad that PSTA is going to help TBARTA with that. But ultimately, in my opinion, TBARTA needs to be a standalone agency that is totally focused on regional transit, which is different than local transit. It needs to work together, but that's where the focus needs to be. I believe together, we will accomplish much more at getting money from the federal government in Washington than going individually as one county at a time. The thing I want to thank this board most for is my family's been here since 1906 in this area, and I have been around, but I've never been around the region as much as I have with this job. going to all these different county commission meetings, learning who the commissioners are, who the MPO members are, what the problems are. You see great ideas in some counties that can be used in other counties. I've learned so much. Found great restaurants to eat at lunch in different places, and places to take my family on weekends, great museum down in downtown Bradenton. My grandkids loved it. And just, I feel like so much more connected to the region now. And when I finally ever do retire, I'll have a lot of stuff to do because I've seen things I never saw before. So with that, I want to tender my resignation. I know you probably think I've lost my mind entering a race this late, but you know what? You have to seize the moment. Things shifted around in the last 2 weeks that I wasn't sure to expect, and I thought, you know what, I've thought about this my whole life, but either somebody I liked was running for office and I didn't want to run against him. This time, I didn't really know anybody in that district that was running, so I told my family thinking they'd say, are you nuts? And they immediately said, no, you got to do this. You thought about your whole life. This is what you need to do. So no matter what happens, I'm not going to be miserable doing this. I'll be tired, but I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to talk about the issues, and my number one issue is this agency and what they are doing and what we have the potential to do. So I'm going to give it my best shot to help, whether it's talking about it or ending up in a position to help move it forward. And with that, thank you very much. Now, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Ray, again, thank you for your years of service to this board and to this community, and we are hopeful that you will continue to do so in many, many different ways. One question that has been brought up by members of the legislature to me and stakeholders, they are very, very happy at the direction of TBARTA, and we couldn't be more delighted with our partnership now with PSTA and moving things forward. Structurally, there has been a question raised, and I would like your recommendation to maybe kick off a discussion for further board action down the road. Again, we're in the middle of a search for new executive directors. We know we have tried to accelerate that timing and are moving forward and hope that. In the interim period, though, I wanted to solicit from you first and then open this up to board discussion on the need or lack thereof of an interim executive director for TBARTA. So if you could give us some introductory comments as the outgoing director, whether you think that's necessary, or essentially let the board in partnership with our staff and TBARTA just keep the helm going in the right direction until we find a permanent replacement.
I really do think with the partnership with PSTA and the present staff and those staffs working together, you could go on, if you have an accelerated executive director search, without an interim executive director. However, it could probably help if there was somebody that could help with that. But I think that's really totally up to the feelings of this board. There are pros and cons on either side. But I do think that you don't have to do that. My staff, Michael is immersed in all the details of the agencies. I think what you're going to lose is he's not going to be able to go out and participate in things like MPO meetings and things of that nature. There might be some way somebody else could do that, you know, but again, it depends on how fast the search goes on, I think, is the critical thing. I don't want the agency to lose its connection, though, to the MPOs and to the counties that are all members of our 5 counties, and suddenly we disappear kind of from the radar. Because it helps me to listen to what those major regional issues are, like in Pasco County or Hernando or Manatee. So that needs to still take place some way. And I know Michael's not going to be able to do that to the level because he's going to be working on details in the office, which he's very good at. And Sue works long hours to do all kinds of things. So we do have some new help now. Gabriella, thank goodness she came along, which can help with the meetings. So, you know, I think we're in good shape either way, but, you know, it's really up to this board how they want to proceed with that.
That is a wonderfully political answer.
I'm learning. I had a meeting with my staff last night, and they were really on me that you're going to have to take positions, on everything, but be careful, so. Anyway.
That said, I would like to open it up to board discussions, and I'm sure some members have some questions about that. The chair recognizes Commissioner Burnett.
Okay. Well, I do think you're crazy, but I think I've already told you that. Many people told me that before.
I know, yeah, you're my example.
Come from similar backgrounds.
Planner, yeah.
I think you'll do a fabulous job, quite frankly. The schedule for our executive director selection. Can you just refresh my memory? When are we in it? We've talked about accelerating. Where are we on?
Yeah, it has been, the job description has been posted in various periodicals. It is going to run for 60 days. They are collecting resumes. We want to start the first round of interviews in August, around August 20th or so. So we have some time in there to do that. And again, I will take under advisement the appointment of this that I was just authorized to do for the initial screening board, and then work with all members to schedule interviews, because we want to have as much participation as possible in that whole process, because we are a regional board and it should reflect the regional diversity in the decision.
Well, my thought on it is, first of all, it's not great timing, but it's the timing that there is. But a lot of us take breaks over the summer, so we aren't under a crunch. I know, for example, our MPO doesn't meet again until September. So, and I know that many of us sit on the MPO board, so we might have to step it up. I always give a report at my MPO about what's going on at TBARTA. Maybe we give a report here, what's going on with our MPO, if staff can't make it to those meetings, and just kind of fill that gap. So my thought is that, I don't know if we appoint Michael as an interim director, but I think we need to just keep going on and keep moving as quickly as we can to select our executive director, and not try to put somebody maybe in that role if we don't have to.
Okay. Commissioner Long first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank you seriously for allowing us to have this discussion today. I think that because of the financial crunch that we're in right now to pull these state and federal dollars down, and the hard work that the PSTA leadership team has done to position us in a really favorable financial spot for when we do bring a new executive director in. I know that Ms. Debbie Leos has been working really hard on a projected budget for us to consider for next year, based on what a really solid agency like TBARTA should look like, with the appropriate budgetary amounts for the positions that the new group will need, so that the new executive director doesn't come in and have to redo all of that work. I am not in favor of having an interim person for right now. I think that with the leadership team, PSTA, the interlocal agreement that we have right now between PSTA and TBARTA, and the interlocal agreement that we have between PSTA and HART, I know that Debbie has been working hard to pull down money that will benefit both transit agencies, not only here, but in Hillsborough County as well. So it seems to me that we have a very strong leadership team in place with a lot of employee support, and I don't see that we will flounder at all. And of course, you're always available, and if we see that happening, I'm sure the team would be more than happy to let you know ASAP. Lastly, we have to be governed by the money. And I think it's irresponsible as an elected official to double encumber a leadership position that's already being served by our interlocal agreement. And again, to Commissioner Seal's point, when she last asked the question, where's the money going to come from to pay this person?
Understood. Thank you for those comments. I know Cliff, Karen Seal, I think,
that's fine.
Got in there. Our system up here is a little different than we're used to, so just push a button and I'll recognize people, but I do that manually as well.
Does that work now?
Yeah. All right, now you push your button and that red light will turn solid.
There we go.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Good job.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I guess I have kind of a mixed emotion about it, just because we are going to be working on putting out the regional transit development plan, out to bid and, trying to put that in order. I haven't talked to him at all, and I think he's in the audience, but, I had a thought that perhaps we could get Bob Clifford on loan, seeing that he ran the agency before, if that was at all possible, and or turn to FDOT and see if there was anybody that they could loan us in the interim as well. So it's just a thought, just to keep things moving forward. Again, I understand the partnership with PSTA, but we're adding a lot more burden to their staff to then run this agency, so it's just a thought.
Chair recognizes Cliff Emanuel.
First, Ray, thank you. Your service has been excellent. When you came on board so many years ago, it seems like now, there was a lot of things to do, and you did all of them, so I really appreciate your service. I would like to hear from you, Michael, so I'm leaning toward an interim director, but I think it should be from staff, where we have some structure that we can rely on with a point person like Ray to carry on day-to-day activities. What do you feel about being our interim director for a short period of time while we find a permanent director?
That's something that I've been preparing to do, and have already been working on a plan in place to make sure that we have proper communication between our agency and PSTA, leveraging the resources that they've made available to us to help us get the agency in the right financial and structural order. I don't know that it would be necessary, so to speak, to name me officially as interim executive director. It's something that I feel comfortable doing with my current title as principal planner. It possibly could be an optics issue as well. As Ray explained, there is a lot of detail in the office to manage. So, essentially, I think how it may work is that we may split up some of the, what I would call public relations activities, interim to having a permanent executive director between myself and PSTA as well. And we've worked with Cassandra Borchers in the past quite extensively. And I feel very confident in having her, if she's available, we would have to work that out, helping us with those kinds of activities.
Mr. Chair, from my perspective, and I'm not making a motion yet, I'd like to hear from other board members, but having the continuity of staff working under some leadership is important, so we don't just say the staff. We can kind of go to Michael for our day-to-day activities and reports would be important if I were working in their environment. And because we want to focus our energy on the new executive director, I think trying to put someone in place to provide that leadership doesn't make as much sense to me if Michael's capable of structuring it in-house. So that's my thoughts.
All very relevant and sound arguments. To go to Ray's point, that arguments on both sides are very, very, very salient and relevant here, and that's why I specifically wanted to open this up for discussion. Secretary Gwynn.
I just wanted to respond, and we had talked about the possibility of FDOT providing a couple of things on that. One, we are and will continue to provide technical support, administrative support, everything we can, helping to develop scopes and all of that. I'm not sure that it would be a good idea to have a DOT employee serve in that position. One of the things that we've been doing during the whole process of this project has been to make sure a lot of the folks in the beginning said this is just a DOT project that's going to be driven by DOT. So we've tried to keep an arm's length from the actual decision making, and just providing technical support and providing, help as needed with our folks. But I'm not sure that it would be received entirely positive. It may look as if FDOT is stepping in to drive the ship, which is something we've decided, and I think as TBARTA as well, that we wouldn't do. So from that perspective, but I can guarantee anything they need from our staff, we have technical folks there ready to help, if it's helping to write scopes, if it's helping to provide information or technical support, but I don't think it'd be the best thing to have us have an employee in that role.
Understood very well. Mr. Kemp.
Thank you. I think it just, and I assumed actually, it made total sense to me that Mr. Case would just fill in the interim. He knows what is happening there. I don't know about the whole double dipping, but I would imagine he would have a greater burden of a job to do, and should certainly would look at compensating him fairly for that. But I would very much trust and think it would make a lot of sense to have Mr. Case step up in this case and manage the agency in the interim.
Thank you. Kathleen Shanahan.
I agree with Commissioner Kemp. I think that, I do think though that every ship needs a leader. We're in hurricane season. There's just a lot of moving parts. So I would actually vote for an interim director title versus the head of planning. You gotta have somebody to call. You gotta have somebody who's gonna be able to call out. And I think it's really important. And I don't know if there's any reasons that you didn't want the title, but I think the pay and the title should be cover the responsibility that is assumed by the individual.
Mayor Kreisman.
Yeah, and I would agree with those comments, and that was pretty much what I was going to say. Well, I think it could probably be handled without having an interim. Having someone that any outside organization or entity can look to, if that need occurs, I think is important, and even internally. Again, while everyone may get along great, there sometimes comes a point in time where someone has to be in charge.
Thank you. Other comments down?
Do I have to press anything?
I
think I'm lying.
I press it here.
It's easier for me to just talk loud. I agree. I apologize. I don't know the workload of the staff members, but someone needs to be in charge, and so I would echo my fellow board members. Also, I looked up my schedule, and our MPO doesn't meet till August 23rd, so we do have a long break over the summer that may free up some time. So,
thank you. Commissioner Kemp.
I'd like to make a motion to have Mr. Case assume interim director, and can look at compensation and have that move forward.
Second.
Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your confidence in my ability to lead this organization interim to having a new executive director. So thank you.
Thank you. Any new business come before the board? Thank everyone for arranging their schedules to come today. It's been a very good meeting. I hope our future meetings will run as smoothly as this one has. I'm a little skeptical.
Before we adjourn and let everyone go, might it be possible for Debbie to give us a very brief update on where we are financially right now with what's already been done? I think that might be important.
That's a great idea. Chair recognizes Debbie.
Morning, Board. I'm Debbie Leas. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of PSTA. And we have been working with the staff with TBARTA and also the Forward Pinellas to be able to move us forward on. There's basically 3 grants currently that are open. We have successfully completed with FTA approval all the grant revisions to be able to draw down those funds. They'll bring back to the region and save it within the region. The second piece is there's about $3.7 million of money of FTA funds that we are looking to have TBARTA be a subrecipient to PSTA, so the money will pass through us. There's some steps we need to take to make that happen, but we're going to move forward quickly on that so that we can bring that money to the table to be used for a variety of things. So the other piece is there's also state grants that are out there. And I've reached out to actually FDOT on that. I've been doing my homework on that. And what I am working on, because I am learning as we go through this, is I'm putting together a budget and I'm putting together a template right now of all the funding sources that TBARTA has and all your expense elements. And it's interesting, there are things that can be used for different pots of funds for the same expense element. What I want to do is have it very clean and transparent, both to FDOT, to FTA and to any of the other funding sources that are out there, whether it's Hillsborough County, MPO, et cetera, so that we can see what is going to go where, and then I'm going to be building off of that for the future, not just 1 year, but in a multi-year plan, so that we can start looking now to say, is the $1 million that we're getting from the state enough money to really make this sustainable and viable? But we need to make the proper case to do it. So I'm having a lot of fun learning. The staff has been phenomenal at helping me out with this, and we've had a lot of great interaction between the agencies. Are there any questions?
Questions for Debbie? Yes.
I don't really have a question, but I do want to say thank you. I think this is probably the most important thing that we can do over the next few months is to get our financial house in order. You know, as we look for an executive director, we're going to want to have a really solid position. So I look to Michael to work very closely with you in understanding this, and I know he does, and the opportunities. And also as we get ready to go forward to the legislature again, we're going to have that and have to understand exactly, you know, how the $1 million is being spent and what is the ask for next year. So I don't think there's anything more important in the next few months. You know, I know we've talked about cutting back on some of the things you do, but I think that is the most important thing for this board, for you to be able to get our, you know, finances set and look at what the opportunities are for the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments?
I just want to say, some of the board wasn't here the last time. I mean, I cannot thank Brad and PSTA enough for this, you know, resources in terms of the gift of the talent, the insights, and the ability to frame this out, because we would not get an executive director if we didn't go through this process. Let me just be very clear. It was a total disaster, even with the $1 million from the legislature. So in terms of where the money is, where it's coming from, how we apply it, and how we maximize that as a platform that's just trying to get going. So thank you so much for doing this, and it's going to be very impactful in terms of attracting talent to this region to assume this mantle.
Other questions, comments?
Is this, I have one comment and one question. Is this $1 million recurring, or do we need to ask again? So do we have a plan to ask again, and should we try and get it? Why don't we ask for it to be recurring for a
We
while?
have appointed through to be a subcommittee of the policy committee, a legislative committee of which all 5 members from the different counties are on.
Okay.
That should call a meeting to plan our legislative strategy in conjunction with staff from PSTA.
Okay, and my comment was, I want to thank Commissioner Long for all the time she's put in on helping us with this financial situation. She went above and beyond, so thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you might want to turn off the rest, because otherwise they're on open mics. There you go. All right, and now you just turned me off. Turn me back on.
All right.
There we go. The thing that's so critical, I don't want anyone to lose sight of this, about what Debbie is doing, is that for the first time when we do go to the legislature, we're going to have a document that shows the leadership of the legislature why we need the money, and more importantly, what it's going to be spent for. And that's why her projections for what a really solid agency like TBARTA should look like will be so critical to us. And not that we want to put you under any stress or anything, Debbie, but it might be good if we could have a little bit of that projection for our board meeting in August, so that the board is able to say yay or no before we start going to the legislature to make our specific request.
I think that's a perfect idea. We can come forth with not only the budget for next year, but the long-term plan, and that way you can have input into, you know, how the structure looks.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Long. Any other comments? The chair will just add his thanks to you guys as well for an immensely good job you've done and to really rising to the occasion here. I will say that I think we will be well equipped to go to the Florida legislature with an even larger ask, especially with our abilities to tap into more of these grants that we previously were unable to do so. So again, that's been a large part your expertise, guidance, and tutelage, and we thank you very much for that. And I think this symbolism of coming together with our partner agencies, which we do with HURD as well, is precisely what people of this state envision with regionalism, and this proves the effort is worthwhile, in my opinion. So a heartfelt thanks to you for all the good work. Any other business? None being heard, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Move second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Very efficient, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
We have an extra one. Senator, not as you know, we got, we had a number of years. I guess with that, all I can say is oh, that is great. And you know the way it is, you get a bill, how many banks get a bill?